Hi and welcome to another video. Today is another collaboration with Tara Lee, so I'll let her introduce herself.
Hey, what's up? My name is Tara and my YouTube channel is Tara Lee, where I make skincare products. So if you enjoy Jenna's content, you'll probably also love mine. And I'll be challenging Jenna to make the Sol de Janeiro, I don't know if I said that right, Bum Bum Body Scrub. I'm excited to see how hers turns out. And over on my channel, Jenna has challenged me to make the Dove exfoliating body polish. So come stop by to see how that turned out.
So as Tara just said there, we are challenging each other to make products. I'm challenging her to make the Dove body scrub and she is challenging me to make the Sol Janiero one. So we'll see how we get on. Because it is a collab, I am posting a formula, so you can see that here. If you want a printable version with information on all the ingredients and sort of my reasoning behind everything, that's available on my Patreon, which as usual is linked below. Don't forget to stick around till the end to find out what Tara and I made of each other's products, and let's get on with the making. Here we go. So here we have a bowl of coconut oil. This is unrefined, it does have a coconut scent to it, and you can get one that doesn't if you prefer. And that's our emollient and moisturiser. And to that we're adding our Olus oil, which is also an emollient and moisturising. You can read more about that in the blog post that I've added on Patreon, where I go into detail about the ingredients that I've used. But this is basically forming our oil base to put our silica into. I've got one shot at this because I only have enough silica to do this once, so we're just going to hope that this works. Next we have some kapuasui butter, which is also an emollient and it's also very skin softening. It's quite like cocoa butter, but it's quite a lot softer and it doesn't have that scent. Then we have some acai oil, which is said to help with skin elasticity, which goes with Sol Janero's general theme, so we're going to add that in. That is quite a dark colour and it does affect the overall colour of the product, but since we're going for what they did, that doesn't matter. Then I'm adding some sunflower oil, which is also an emollient and moisturising and an anti-inflammatory. I'm going to add that right in there. I separated all the ingredients out pre-weighed just to make it easier, so make sure you measure accurately when you do it. And then rice bran extract. This conditions the skin and is said to also be a moderate chelating agent, though I've not tried it in that capacity before. So this is all of our oils and butter, which we're going to melt down before we add our silica. And to do that I'm using a water bath with 1 to 2 inches of water and then just letting that melt down. It doesn't take long because coconut oil melts in a flash. Whilst that's melting, you need to grab yourself a respirator, open a window, and if you've got an air purifier, turn that on because we're going to be working with silica. This is all I had left weighed out, so this is what I'm using in this formulation, and I'm just going to wait until everything has melted down in my bain-marie, and then while it's still on the heat I'm going to add the silica a little at a time, stirring as I add it until it's fully incorporated. Because of the amount of silica we're adding, you should find that it incorporates fairly easily and it should become a nice smooth consistency fairly soon, but it is very airborne, so add it very carefully. This is specifically silica dimethyl silicate, and it seems to be a bit of a staple in scrubs like this, but it is the most horrible thing to work with, so do make sure you are wearing PPE. And just get that mixed in really well, and after you've done that, make sure you wipe down all of your surfaces and the bowl that you had it in and everything with a damp cloth so that you can minimise all of the floaty powder in the room and it doesn't get back up in the air again as you move around. Once that's a fairly smooth liquid, you want to be adding your emulsifier, and for that we're using the same as they use, which is Olive M1000, and you just want to pour that in while it's still on the heat and just allow that to melt down completely, and then that will be our full oil phase completed. And here's what we're left with. You can see that's nice and smooth now. All we need to do now is add in our phase B ingredients, which is our water phase. We've got our humectant glycerin, and then we've got our water. This is distilled water. I'm just going to pour that into the glycerin and mix that around a little bit. These are for our water soluble ingredients, and also they included in the ingredients, so I'm going to add it as well. I assume that's what it's for. It's just a tiny bit. If you've got water soluble titanium dioxide, then by all means add it into the water now to disperse it and add it in at this stage. If you haven't, you can add it in before you add this, because it would be oil soluble, so add it to the oil stage if you want to add it at all. They have it included. It just lightens the colour of the scrub a little bit. So I'm going to add that in, and yes, it is a tiny amount, but as I was stirring it I could see a little bit of separation. We're not going to get it emulsified with just a whisk and a spatula, so I did take this away and use my stick blender briefly, just to emulsify it properly. That did add a few bubbles, but it didn't seem to matter, and this is what we ended up with. Then take the temperature, because you're going to want to let this cool to 40 degrees or lower before you add your cool down phase. In the meantime, we'll add our mica, and I couldn't colour match very well. I just kind of went for a gold, so I'm adding that. It turns out that the Sol Janiero scrub's a bit more pink, so if you want to go all out and colour match, then do. This was my best guess, so I went with that. And then just mix that around. It does mix in eventually. You can use a whisk if you prefer. So here's where, as usual, I forgot to turn the camera on again. So you've missed me adding the start of the cool down phase after it got to 40 degrees, where I added the Bum Bum fragrance oil from Pure Scented for the scent, also some phenoxyethanol EHG preservative, it's a broad spectrum preservative, and some rosemary extract, which is said to improve skin appearance. You then are seeing me add some guarana seed extract, which is rich in caffeine to help tighten and firm the skin, and some vitamin E. And obviously that's our antioxidant. And then we just stir those in really well to make sure it's all combined as usual. Then we're adding sodium chloride, or table salt. This is extra exfoliation, and it also acts as a bit of a stabiliser for the product. So I'm just mixing that in properly so that it's evenly distributed before I add all of our sugar. Now I'm just using normal granulated white sugar, but in hindsight after making this, I think a lot of these companies don't use granulated sugar. I think they just used fine caster sugar, because the texture of theirs is a lot finer, and my scrubs always come out a lot grainier, and it must be that. So if you have fine caster sugar, I think you're probably more likely to get near the texture that they have, so I'd use that instead of granulated. But anyway, I mixed all of that in really well. I always say that. And then I decided I didn't have any of the seeds that they suggested, but I did have jojoba seeds. So to add those little brown specks that are in the original scrub, I added some of those because it can't hurt for visual and also texture. And then I just mix those in. And then basically after that, it's ready to jar up. Obviously, I don't have the Sol Janiero jars, they are unique to them, but I do have these scrub jars, so I just used one of them. It's not the most attractive scrub in the world, it would look better in an opaque jar, but you know, we've done what we've done. These jars are linked below if you want them for other scrubs that will look a bit prettier than this. Otherwise, if you have an empty Sol Janiero scrub jar or cream jar, then you might as well make use of that and reuse it. So yeah, we're just putting it all in here. This was a 300 gram batch and it fit pretty much exactly in this jar. At the moment it's quite soft because it's still just above room temperature, and obviously the coconut oil is quite soft, and so because of that we're going to leave it for a little while because the Sol Janiero one is very solid, and I want to see if leaving this overnight will give the same effect. So we're going to do that and come back in the morning to play with texture. And here we are the next day. This is after we've let it just sit, and it has firmed up quite a lot. It was quite cool in the room to begin with. This is the Sol Janiero one, and it is quite firm. It's quite hard to get some out of the jar. You do have to push into the scrub with your finger quite hard, and the same with mine. So here's a little side-by-side comparison for you. Like I said earlier, there is a very obvious colour difference, but you know, I tried my best. Don't come at me. What we're doing here is just testing the textures really, and they're very similar. Mine's perhaps a little bit harder, but I think that's because I'd been playing with the Sol Janiero one a bit beforehand, so I'd already warmed up the texture. Once it gets in your hands and it warms up with the heat from your hands, it does soften a lot. That was another reason that I thought it was mostly coconut oil, because coconut oil is quite quick to melt in your hands. But this is what my one looks like, and then you can see in comparison with the Sol Janiero one. The Sol Janiero is, like I say, it seems a bit of a finer texture, which is why I think they've used a finer sugar. I think that's what that is. I think had I used normal caster sugar, I think I probably would have nailed the texture then. I'm pretty pleased with this. So the side-by-side test here really shows how similar they are. I mean, it's not the prettiest scrub, and it is very, very scrubby. If you like something that feels like wet sand, then this is the one for you. But side by side here, you can see I'm pretty pleased with that. That's come out pretty well. So let's do a little sync test. And first we'll do the Sol Janiero. I don't know how many times you can watch me spread this scrub on myself, but here you go. You're getting it again anyway. Any excuse to come and test products. So you see that goes on fairly well, and then it sort of crumbles off, and then you're just left with kind of like a sandy texture on your arm, and then it rinses off fairly well. Your skin's left feeling soft, perhaps a little bit oily, which I guess is unsurprising given the coconut oil. And then mine will do the same thing. Again, it is a very firm scrub. I'm guessing in the summer this softens up a lot because of the coconut oil. It's just, you know, it's not that warm at the moment. So we'll try that, and yeah, again, spreads on okay, and then sort of crumbles and goes all granulated, as you'd expect from sugar. I don't know what I'm talking about, guys. I'm kind of over the voiceover now. But anyway, this washes off, and same kind of feel. They're fairly similar. I'm fairly pleased with them, to be honest. Okay, so that was fun. I'm not sure I necessarily got it, but I only had one shot at it because I only had so much silica left, and I didn't have enough to do it again. So we've got what we've got. And I do think it's close. Obviously, the colour is not quite right. It needs to be a bit pinker. But, you know, in terms of texture, it's pretty similar. So this is the Sol Janiero one. And, you know, it takes some effort to get some at the moment, or at least in the temperature that I'm working in at the moment. But the heat from your hand kind of melts it as you put it on. So yeah, that's quite firm, quite sandy in texture. And then mine is quite similar. You have to really get in there, and once it's melted a bit, it's actually quite pliable and soft. But yeah, it's, see that, quite a firm sandy texture that just kind of softens as you play with it. So overall, not exact, but very similar, I think. So, as you've just seen, I have made the Janiero scrub that Tara challenged me to make, but I challenged her to make the Dove pomegranate scrub. So Tara, how did it go and what did it come out like?
Okay, so here is how mine turned out, and it's not my proudest dupe, but it definitely is pretty similar to, I'd say, Dove's texture. It's got that really fluffy consistency that I think is pretty unique to a scrub. But I will say that the viscosity is a little, it's a little bit more thin than theirs, but I'm still proud of how it turned out. And I think you guys should stop over to my channel and see how I made it.
Definitely go and check out Tara's channel. I will link the video below because it is a really, really unique texture, this scrub, and I'm really interested to see how she made it, so make sure you go and do that now.
See you guys there!